Hey there, and welcome to the Confident Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Rache Brooks. Join me as I sit down and chat with co-hosts, friends, and carefully curated guests and talk about all the things that empower you to become your best and most confident self. So, let's get started. So I want to start today with something that's been living in my head for quite a while now. And honestly, it's one of those things that just sounds so simple when you say it out loud. But when you actually sit with it, it hits completely different. So here it is. What if your business was never supposed to be the main thing? Like, what if the work you do, the thing you've been building, pouring into, sacrificing for all this time, was always meant to support your life and not replace it, not consume it, not become this thing you have to recover from every Sunday night? You have this dread before the week starts all over again. And I think a lot of us have built our businesses backwards. And I know I did. You know what I keep talking about? The cart before the horse. And let's get real. So when I started building, it's crazy because I had this vision, this big, beautiful vision of this life that I wanted and what I wanted to create and bring into this world. And honestly, it came from this place of, this real place, like something I had experienced. And it came from looking back at my own life and thinking, if only I had these tools, these systems, these resources, these spaces, these places where someone just like me would give it back to me and say, here, this is for you. Like, maybe, just maybe, at that point, I wouldn't have felt so behind. And so that's what I was thinking as I was pondering this question, asking myself, where did I feel like I went off track? Because if I had all these things, would I have been stuck for as long as I was? And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. But again, hindsight's our best teacher, and it will teach us so much moving forward as we prepare and plan for our future versions of who we're becoming and what we're building and bringing into these new seasons. And so I say all that because I felt just so completely stuck. It was a point where you just wanted to shortcut the suck and get out of this pit of whatever this pain point that you're in, right? So as you're building this business or building this life or building something, whatever that looks like in your life, it's probably because you want to get out of that position that you're in or situation. And so when I was building this, I just constantly felt like I was swimming upstream. I was getting knocked down every day by the currents of life, of these metaphorical logs that were coming down the stream faster than I can dodge them, by the debris that felt like it was constantly clogging and bogging me down and getting in the way. But realistically, I was getting knocked down by life because life will continue to happen. And there's really nothing that we can do to control that. As much as we try to control, we can't. And so I built. I just did what I do best. I build things. I started creating, I started building, and I started doing the things that I wish I had or that had existed for me during these seasons and times when I needed those things, right? And somewhere in that, I picked up this idea, and I guess more or less it was a belief that if I just worked hard enough, pushed long enough, showed up consistently enough, that the life I wanted would eventually show up on the other side of that effort. That the struggle and the strife and the hard work and the determination and the grit, all of it, but it was the price you paid because that's what we're taught, right? We're ambitious. We're go-getters. We're faith-fueled women. Faith and works. God will provide if you abide. Chase the vision. Build the dream. You know how it is. All those stuff. All the cliches. All the things you probably added to your vision board or wrote on your Post-its and put them on your mirror or on your computer. I did this. I'm just being honest here. And the truth is, I believed it. I really, truly believed it. Because I was doing all the things. I was up early, Hashtag God and goals. I was staying up late. I was sacrificing fun and I was sacrificing moments. And it's just, when I look back at it all, and I'm not saying this in a way of regret because I don't live in a place of regret. I live in a place, like I said, hindsight is your best teacher. And I will always pull forward what did and didn't work to help give you guys more clarity and help shortcut the suck. But what I realized is that in doing all that, I was creating, I was producing, I was posting, emailing, launching, all of it constantly. And yet I felt like I was just running a race against time, a race I could never win. Like the clock was ticking and if I didn't achieve what God had placed on my heart, that I had failed, that I failed him, that I failed myself, that I failed the women who needed what I had to offer. And that's when I realized something I wasn't ready to see yet. I was trying to fix myself by fixing other people. The people pleaser in me, as I like to say, the recovering perfectionist. I didn't want anyone else to feel the pain I felt in my own struggles. What I was too blind to see was that I was still struggling, just in a new way, a new pain. It was the same story, different pattern, different chase, different race. And you know what I had to show for all that? A business that needed me for everything. An audience that liked me. And offers that weren't converting. And that was the hardest pill to swallow. I remember looking back at everything and just being like, what the heck did I do? I felt like I had created this monster that was bigger than me that I could not sustain. And I just felt so exhausted. And I couldn't figure out why nothing was working. All that hustling, grinding, sacrificing, following the bro marketing, the blueprints, the gurus, the guides, and all I had to show for it was burnout. Just exhausted, just tired. And with all of that, brought up this mix of emotions that I didn't even have words for at the time. But what they tasted and felt like were anger, bitterness, and resentment toward the very thing I had built that was supposed to set me free, that was supposed to be this gift that I give back to this world. And what I found is that I had become a slave to the hustle and grind. I'd been imprisoned in the very business that needed me 24/7. And that pressure to be on all the time was killing me, was destroying me from the inside out. But here's what I've come to understand, especially in the season of rebuilding. The problem wasn't my effort. The problem was that I had built a business on top of my life instead of underneath it. Does that even make sense? Because my business was sitting on top of everything. On top of my peace, on top of my relationships, on top of my health. And when life got hard, and trust me, it got really, really freaking hard, the whole thing cracked because there was no foundation underneath it. And here's the thing about foundations. While I had spent years helping build and grow other people's businesses in the online space, when you're building your own from scratch, from the ground up, you're literally laying the foundation. And if the foundation to which you build your business, your brand, your life isn't secure, so let's talk about what it actually looks like to build a business that supports your life. Because we talk about freedom and flexibility all the time in this space, but we don't get specific enough about what that actually requires. So the first thing, and this one is foundational, no pun intended, you have to know what your life actually needs before you can build a business to support it. And I'm not talking about the highlight reel version of your life, not the life you're going to have one day when everything is figured out, or when the hard season is over and you're finally feeling like yourself again. I'm talking about the actual life you have right now with all the things that are going on, whether it's caregiving, whether it's starting a new family, pivoting in your career, whatever kind of battles you're fighting. It's the emotional weight that you're carrying, the spiritual burnout that you're feeling, this tug of war internally. Physically, you feel exhausted, and mentally, you don't even know where your mind is at half the day. It's just going from all the thoughts on repeat in this cycle. And the limited hours in the days when you're just there, you're really just not okay. And that's okay to admit that. You're going through the motions. You're trying to do it all, be it all, to have it all. Because this is what this world will teach you, is that's what success is. When you have the outcome, but the outcome is this unattainable carrot of a life. And let's just say you have this amazing life, and I'm not discounting that it's not possible, but I will tell you that that is temporary. Nothing here in this world is permanent. So while you're on your ups and while you're on your highs, there will also followed by periods and times of lows, and sometimes deep, deep lows, and sometimes deep lows. That's the beauty of life. Because when you can experience the most highest of highs, you can also deepen your faith at the lowest of lows. Your faith is tested throughout all of life. And that was a big lesson, big awakening, and a big aha to everything in my life. Because when I lived at the highest of highs and I lost so much and I found myself at the lowest of lows, the only thing I had to lean on was my faith. The only thing that was left was my identity in Christ. And when you have those two things, knowing who you are and whose you are, there's no stopping you. Because when you have breath and life in the same being, there's still hope. And that's where your faith comes in. That's where faith, as small as a mustard seed, is tested. And so when I got honest about what my life actually needed, it was simplicity. It was less. It was one offer, one platform, one funnel, one clear path forward. I stripped everything down and I got crystal clear. Everything I had created before had to go because I was not the same person who created them years ago. I'm not the same person who's even using those tools now. They serve for their time and their purpose then. And so when I got crystal clear on the path that I was on and where God was leading me in this season, I stripped everything. And when I talk about simplicity, I mean the bare bones basics. You don't need all the things. You don't need to catch up with the hype. You don't need to know what's trending, what's not. And that's the one big thing in my business is that I don't follow trends. I don't follow and play the games with the algorithms. But I'm not trying to win the world's race. I'm trying to win my race at a pace that is sustainable. Because I tried that. I tried to play the games in this world. I tried to play the game of life, of business, of all the things. But when you recognize that you're not of this world, it doesn't matter because this is your life. You have to do what's best for you. And so stripping everything away, I realized that it wasn't all the things that I had going on prior or the things that are going to happen in the near future. I had to use discernment and wisdom because you also have some sense of attachment to the things that you brought into this world, and letting go can feel quite painful. And so when you get clear on that, you realize you're not being pulled in different directions and you're not holding on to something that no longer serves you. And that's the moment where I had to make peace with the fact that a simpler business is not a smaller dream. It's actually a smarter one. And so the second thing is this. Your business has to be able to run on your worst days, not just on your best days. And this was huge for me because my entire system was built on inspiration and energy. It was built on creativity and design. I had all this energy and this design of feeling almost in control, if you will. And so when I felt good, I showed up. And when I didn't, I didn't. And everything stopped. And life will always give you seasons where you don't feel good. Grief doesn't take days off. Loss doesn't care. Hard seasons, pause or reset your content calendar. I have lived it, and it's been so hard because the stop and start and stop and start, that will burn more energy than creating sustainability. And so when I started building real systems, and I'm not talking about these complicated, overwhelming 12-step systems, I'm talking about simple yet practical and repeatable ones. You get into a rhythm and a cadence of life. Take, for example, this one podcast episode. It now becomes my newsletter, which becomes my one full week of content, and that's it. I stopped creating when I didn't need to. And this is why I talk about sustainable, repeatable systems. And that's it. No matter what is happening in my personal life, the machine keeps running because the machine is simple enough to run without me. And I think that we live in this hustle culture where we are trained like we're machines, that if we take time out or if we take a break, we're almost shamed for stopping when the race still has to be won. And we are human beings, not human doers. We are not a machine. We must rest. And the third thing, and this might be the most important one, is you have to stop performing your business and start living it. I spent years performing confidence I didn't always feel, performing for others when I just didn't want to, performing consistency while I was falling apart on the inside, performing by showing up and putting on the mask to pretend that everything was okay when it really wasn't. And all of it was just exhausting because it wasn't real, right? So I'm challenging you, where are you showing up in places and spaces that aren't meant for you in this season? And so the pivot for me was deciding that what I actually go through is the content. The rebuilding is the message. The woman who built something, lost the plot, and is finding her way back. That's who I am. And that's exactly who I'm talking to, right? You don't have to have it all together. And I will always be the first to go first, I guess, at this point, because it's like, what I'm here for is to show up for myself, for you, and share the lessons and the hardships and the ups and downs of life, the ebbs and flows. Because that's what we're supposed to do. That's what life is to help serve and lead and guide others. At least it is for me. So when I stopped pretending and started showing up honestly, something shifted. In fact, everything shifted. And that's, your life is not a liability to your business. It's the whole point of it. And so as Proverbs 16:3 says, commit your work to the Lord and your plans will be established. Not grind your work into the ground until you have nothing left and then come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest, right? God didn't tell us that. He already told us that we have to rest. That's what the Sabbath is. And I started implementing the Sabbath into my schedule, I would say over this past year, intentionally, even though I didn't know what I was doing with it. Every week I took a day off and I would just not open my computer at all. And there was something so freeing about that day. It was the intentional rested work day. And the creativity would come, the inspiration would come, the silence would come. The thoughts actually had space and place to breathe. There's something unique and different about that. And so I do encourage you to take an active rest day. When I say active rest, let your mind have the space to breathe. Surrender your plans and trust God. Meditate on His word. Seek and find the answer, right? How many times do we pray and we think that we're calling out to God or seeking His word, but we never sit still long enough to actually hear Him speak back to us? So our conversation just becomes a monologue. And I was finding that with myself. And that's when I started saying things have got to change. And so when I say that we don't grind, but we intentionally take that time off, this isn't just about hustling until the plans show up or commit it and surrender it. And trust that what's meant to be established will be established. I've had to learn that the hard way, and maybe you have too. So if you're in a season right now where your business feels like a burden instead of a vehicle, I want you to hear this. That is not a you problem. That is a structure problem. That is a system problem. And the structure and system can be fixed. You don't need more content. You don't need another offer. You just need a simpler system underneath the life you're actually living, and giving yourself the time and space to rest and receive. Because I think that was part of your intention and your business blueprint from the get-go, was to have more freedom, more flexibility, to spend more time with your maker and creator, spend more time with your family, spend more time in service, loving and giving. But we can't do that if we're serving two masters. And which one are you feeding? I know, this is a gut check and a heart check, both at the same time, because I needed this for me. And that's what I'm building. And that's what I want to help you build too. So if you're ready to start, great. Check the links below in the show notes. Come find me. My newsletter goes out every Thursday with exactly this kind of real strategic conversation. And the Freedom Framework is there when you're ready to do the work together. Thank you for being here. So until next time, take care and God bless.
Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Confident Woman Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Thanks again for listening.